Hey, how are you? This is Travis from the Prince Off, competitor against Devin, who's been on this channel, and I want to say kudos to her. I agree with you on some of those hairstyles. I mean, Typhoon, that's my do-fool, as you like to say. But I was like, you know, I got a top 5 list. I have something I can contribute. So got to thinking, and I came up with the top 5 greatest Prince performances on an award show or an award ceremony. Now, of course, these are all either awards he was getting or he was nominated for. And a lot of these are old school to me because I remember seeing them for the first time, and there was a lot of buzz the next day when you went to school. We had a lot of water cooler talk is the best way I could say it. But some of my choices are in the 2000s, but a lot of these are from the 80s and 90s. I have to give a couple of honorable mentions, of course. The Europe Awards in 94, when he was the artist and performed Peach. If you don't remember that one, that's the one where he came out and said,
"Peace to George Michael. Peace to Aerosmith. Peace to MTV. And death to Prince."
And it was a good show, and I remember Maite jumping in the audience and no one grabbed her. I thought that was so mean that people, you know, she's crowd surfing, for God's sakes, folks. There was the Brit Awards. That was with Wendy and Lisa. Fantastic show. That was back in 06. The Alma Awards. OMG, that was such a good performance with Sheila E. as well. I remember him coming up to that podium, and he had that big background where he looked like rays of light were coming out of the back of his head. And these are 2 honorable mentions that didn't make my list that I know you guys are going to scream at me. They're up there. But, of course, the 36th NAACP Image Award, where he did the whole melody, new stuff, old stuff, other artists. Oh, my gosh. And then Morris and Sheila were on there. He performed for President Obama as well, too. That was a great performance, and plus he was wearing his 3121 jumpsuit too. And don't hate me, yeah, the Grammy performance with Beyonce didn't make my top 10 either. Good performance, but you know what? I have to say, I gotta go back to the ones that were so good back when I was young. I mean, I'm talking about when he just exploded on the scene. So, without any further ado, these are the top 5 performances on an award show or award ceremony by Prince. Number 5, the 1987 Video Music Awards on MTV. Now, this was probably the first time Prince performed live on MTV, and it was right after Under the Cherry Moon. And he'd wrapped that up, finished up Parade, and was working on the new album. And not a lot of people saw him. Not a lot of people didn't know what he was going to look like or what his new outfit was. And that was the first showing to the American public, was when he came out wearing that denim jacket with the peace sign, the mirrored heart. His hair was different. It was the first time you got to see a different guitar as well, too. It was a peach cloud guitar. A lot of times beforehand, you only saw it in white. But that was the first time we saw a different guitar. The new band from Kat, Wally, Greg, Miko, Levi, Sheila, Bonnie, Eric, Atlanta, and of course, Dr. Fink. And started off pretty all dark, and all of a sudden lights came up and you got to see his face, and people were like, wow, there he is. He kicked off that show, and I think that's what set the standard for having a big show for the VMAs. Also, he performed Playing in the Sunshine at the very end. So it was a 2-for-1 if you got to see that show. So to me, that was the pinnacle of how VMAs really kind of blew up. Like, it was a must-see thing. In the first couple of years, it was just, you know, guys coming out and giving an award off and on. But, you know, he got out there and he did a fantastic job. And that was the VMAs Sign of the Times, number 5. Number 4, of course, I have to pick the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame performance with him and Tom Petty and Jeff Lynne. After Prince passed, I never realized how many views that this video got after he passed. And people went back to research it and saw this fantastic performance from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with all these great artists while he was performing My Guitar Gently Weeps. Right now, it's over at 104 million views on YouTube. And I remember seeing that, and a lot of people said, man, did you check that out with him and Tom Petty? It's such an awesome feeling when you see him work with other artists out there, when he is on stage working with some of the top bigger names along with him. And plus, the video increased more views when Tom Petty passed away. But him shredding on the guitar and him just strumming away and falling back into the audience, and the bodyguard pushing him back up and just taking the guitar off and throwing it off at the end. Oh, fantastic. His performance was great as well with Kiss and Let's Go Crazy. But everyone knows, they go back to that performance of when Prince was shredding on his Mad Cat. And I remember the part where he turned around and looked over at Tom Petty. Tom Petty like smiled back at him. That was an awesome performance. So that is the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame closing song in 2004. Number 3 has to be probably the most talked about amongst Prince fans because there was so much going on at the time. And it was 97, the American Music Awards, when Prince was referred to as the artist. Now, of course, you may have seen the most miraculous performance with all the MPG players. Carmen Electra was one of them. But before that performance, that night of the show, Dick Clark came out on stage and basically said, folks, just want to make sure you let you know his name is not Prince. His name is the artist. So is that good? Okay, roll camera. I remember seeing that live on TV. And then, of course, Nona Gay came out and they presented the Purple Medley. The MPG dancers came out and danced fantastically. I'm going to say her name again. Carmen Electra came out. And I remember watching this when I was young, and I would see all the dancers going every which way, and they started playing the entrance to Shh. So you hear dun, 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 and everyone is going in every which way, and you're like thinking, where is he at? If you look closely in the background, someone's carrying him, and then they lay him on the ground, and then poof, he comes up, and there he is underneath the sheet and just goes right into Billy Jack Bitch. Oh, it was so good. And then it was I Hate You, after Tommy Barbarella went flying through the sky on the wires, and Maite, and they did I Hate You. The other one was 319, which was I would say for the times, 319 Maite was really kind of showing her booty. And don't forget, go back to the Purple Medley. There was a scene where one of the performers took her top off, but she didn't show her breasts. She covered them up like that. If you watch this performance, they were so crazy about live production that, because they didn't have like a delay, they cut right away to a front shot of the audience of like 4 or 5 people in the front audience. You're like, who are these people? And then they go back to the performance. And there's a lot of wide angle shots on this thing from far away. Prince comes out at the very end after doing all that stuff. Now, granted, he did lip sync, and he was in a dispute, and he, was kind of giving Dick Clark a little bit of props because, he really appreciated him being a part of the show. But you remember that he was chewing gum, in My Take's book, basically was talking about, you know, throwing the money and everything at the very end. So a very poignant speech, you know, he was like, I'd like to thank Dick Clark for letting me put Prince to bed. And later on in the evening, the funniest thing was he's sitting in front row with Nona Gay. And he'd come up a couple times and he's sucking on a lollipop. And this was the anniversary of We Are the World, I believe it was. So they show the photo of the recap of We Are the World. And then they go back to on stage and he's standing next to Quincy Jones. The funniest thing is that Quincy Jones leans over, puts a mic in front of his face while he's sucking on a lollipop, and then he puts the lollipop in Quincy Jones's face, and he almost tries to lick the lollipop, which was kind of, it was a funny banter, I have to say. My number 2 pick, who couldn't forget? Another VMA award performance. And of course, the Peekaboo Pants itself, the 1991 Video Music Awards. I remember sitting there, bated breath, with friends who were waiting to see other artists. You know, Van Halen and Poison were getting ready to go on stage. But I was like, I knew he was going to go last. I knew that was going to be the last little thing he was going to do. It took a long time for them to load up the stage and everything. But I had never seen so many people on stage for a Video Music Awards performance. I was like, there's people everywhere. And of course, they had to be very, very careful because a lot of it was supposed to be an orgy scene out of the Get Off video for like Caligula. But here comes our man, comes right on out. He's wearing his yellow suit and performs wonderfully. I always remember that his cuff got caught on the microphone stand, played it off well. And, of course, sang Get Off with his new band, the New Power Generation. And then all of a sudden turns around and people are going, oh, you ain't got no pants on.
Let me show you, baby, I'm a talented boy.
You can see his fanny through that. And there was a lot of people joking about that throughout that time in the 90s. They even did a parody on it, on A Living Color. Shredding the guitar, doing the song just almost to a T. He knew how to close the show. That was so awesome, fantastic. In fact, that was the only reason when Arsenio Hall came back to do the show. He had hosted the VMAs before, and he even said it, this is the reason why I took the gig again. And they muted him at the very end when they thought he was going to say the F word, but he said, funkin' you up, Prince and the New Power Generation. So you hear that little mute because they thought he was going to say the F word. So that was the 90s back in the day and everything. And now for my number 1. It was a close call. I almost wanted to say a tie because these two were in my brain back when things were just exploding in the Purple Rain heyday. I was going to either take the Grammys in 85 or the American Music Awards in 85. So honorable mention to the Grammys. He did a fantastic performance, pulling people on stage, doing I Would Die For You and Baby I'm a Star. It was great. But I'm going with my number 1 performance, of course, is the 1985 American Music Awards when he sang Purple Rain. Man, I just remember seeing that show and seeing that every time the camera would show Prince, everyone in the audience went nuts. Everyone was just going crazy. We got to see Big Chick for the first time when he won an award, I believe, for Best R&B artist. And it just seemed like the whole night was just about him. And I do remember it was this Lionel Richie had say it, outrageous, outrageous.
Propelled to the top of the charts by his hit motion picture, Purple Rain. Here's the super exciting, super talented Prince and the Revolution.
I remember he said, Prince, you just stay in your seat, buddy. The whole show was amazing. It was fantastic. And I want to say that what stuck in my mind the most was the beginning performance of Purple Rain, because they announced him, and then all of a sudden behind all these, the paint is dripping, just coming straight down, looking like Rain, but it's all different colors. And he was wearing his green outfit that time, I remember, and just poured it out. Just
Purple rain, purple rain. Purple rain, purple rain.
it just looked fantastic on camera. And that's, to me, was what just kind of blew up. People talked about that the next day, that performance. If you look closely at that performance where he's playing the guitar at the end of Purple Rain and he kicks over the microphone stand, you might be able to see in the audience a person kind of going like this. That's Cyndi Lauper. She was over the moon just going, yeah, yeah. So, yeah, it's just the imagery of that night, being 15 years old and seeing everything on him and that performance to top it all off was amazing. It was just so good. So there you have it. Those are my top 5 picks for award performances by Prince. Now, I know I may have missed something. Somebody else is going to say something down below. And we're not talking about, accepting awards. We're talking about performances. And those are my top 5 that I just think stick in my head and are fantastic. If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button, hit that notification button, become Prince's friend. There's a lot of great content on this page, and you're going to find out a lot of things you probably didn't know before about Prince. And as they say before, may you live to see the dawn, peace and be wild. Take care.